Hey everyone, I'm your host Cadence, and welcome back to another episode of Project Honesty, a podcast designed for young adults, by a young adult, to gain brutally honest, friend-like advice, as well as provide a platform for young adults to form opinions, color outside of the lines, take deep dives into current events, and most importantly, have fun. This is Project Honesty, navigating reality with real conversations and diverse opinions. Welcome back. I'm so happy for you to all be joining me for episode 23 of Project Honesty. If you haven't already, go check out last week's episode called Mind Over Mountains, How Mental Fortitude Moves You Through Adversity. That is inspired by my recent backpacking trip in the Canadian Rockies. This episode talks a lot about the definition of mental fortitude and how it's an asset when faced with challenges in your life. That is available on Spotify and YouTube. The next, 3 or 4 episodes, including Mind Over Mountains, so including last week's, all run with a common theme: the mind. This was kind of an unplanned theme, but it's also an important theme. I find the mind quite fascinating, and since I'm still young, my mind is still developing. And so I love to discover how my own mind perceives and processes things. Not only that, I love to understand how the minds of other people around me perceive and process things, because everyone's mind is so different and beautiful. And so the mind is something that is very, very fascinating and something I want to talk about. Today's topic is about the lessons we can learn from negative life experiences and the opportunities that they give you for personal growth, and how you can grow from these experiences rather than off of them, and the benefits of growing from something rather than off of it. This episode's inspiration comes from many different things. Turning negative experiences into learning opportunities is something that I've had to learn a lot, and I will still be learning. I used to be the type of person to dwell on negative experiences. You could say I was a bit pessimistic, and I mean, I still am because I'm human and I have tendencies to think like that. And I didn't really realize that life is a constant learning opportunity. Negative life experiences seem bad, and you know they are. They are mentally taxing at times, and some of them even leave a permanent impression on us. I've talked about negative experiences that have impacted my life in the past. So on True Beauty Talk, I talk about body issues, and then on For My Girls, I talk about situations around fake friends. A lot of other episodes mention some negative experiences that I've faced, because a lot of my episode inspiration comes from challenges that I face in my life and things that I want to discuss. And the reality is I will continue to face more negative experiences in life, because that's life. But the thing is, instead of using these experiences as a reason you cannot do things, you can turn them into opportunities, more like a starting line almost, to further improve yourself and the environment that you surround yourself with. This episode is quite important to me, and is kind of important to why I even started this podcast. Is I'm a teenager, and I make this podcast for young people who are still developing like myself. And I want other youth to know that it's okay to experience negative things. Again, that's life. And adolescence is a time to mold your brain and develop really good habits. And a lot of teens, since we are starting a certain time in our life, can feel like there are a bulk of negative experiences hitting us all at once. All of these experiences are different. So with this episode, know that you're not alone in these experiences. A lot of the negative things we face in life can be shared and related to by others, but also make sure that you're not letting these experiences control your abilities, because that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. On this podcast, I've talked about countless negative experiences I've had so far in my life. So again, shitty friendships that have left permanent impressions on me, issues I've had with some of the adult authority figures in my life, and then I've also talked about problems with self-image, and how I scale my self-worth. And some negative experiences that I've had in my life will stay with me. I don't want the world to hear them because they're quite upsetting, but those are things for me to keep. Through all these experiences, I have learned a lot. One of the biggest things that I've had to learn and that I'm continuing to learn is a perspective change. And it's really all about perspective. When you try to change your perspective and say that these experiences are an opportunity, that is a really hard thing to kind of drill in your brain, and it takes time. But that changed in my mind where I said, I need to turn these experiences into an opportunity to improve my environment was something that is so valuable to have as a young girl and has taught me just a lot about life since changing my perspective in that way. Instead of doing things like dwelling on the past and using it as an excuse, I like to say like digging your own grave and stopping your personal progress, and you allow yourself to be mentally and physically affected by the negative situation that you're in to a point where you feel like you need to change yourself to fit the mold set by people around you. The result of that is going to be pretty severe. You're going to have mental health issues like anxiety, depression, things like that. And you're going to let these experiences entirely consume you, whether that is consciously or not. If you are dwelling on the past and you're not trying to change it and you're slowing personal progress because of it, you are letting these experiences consume the entirety of you. And that can lead to other things like low self-confidence, low self-worth, and you become very, very vulnerable and worried about what the world around you thinks of you. And then that becomes a problem again in a loop because you have mental health issues. Overall, when you dwell on something, it will eventually consume you if you're not actively trying to get out of that situation. Learning to make a stepping stone to greater things out of these negative situations and create opportunities for yourself to remove toxins out of your social circle and your environment. And overall, find what you truly want out of life. A couple questions you can ask yourself is, what kind of people do you want in your life long term? Do you want the people that don't answer your texts and don't want to hang out with you and talk behind your back? Or do you want the people who defend your name in any room whether you're there or not? So that's kind of the decision of who do you want in your life? And who do you want to catch you when you fall? Because as humans, we fail a lot. That is one of the greatest gifts of being human is failure. And so who is going to catch you in those situations where you're struggling? Another question you can ask yourself is who brings genuine friendship and trust into those relationships? Who is making the effort? Who is telling you the truth? Who is being vulnerable? Those are all things you can ask yourself to kind of weed out what are the toxins in your environment. And like always, who and what makes you happy? Your happiness at the end of the day is something that is so crucially important to preserve and respect. And so you have to find someone or something that is going to make you happy. And within that, who is going to value and respect the things that make you happy, you as a human, and then also your passions. That is a big one. If people aren't respecting your passions in life, they don't respect you as a person. One of the things I find myself saying the most to my friends and people who want advice from me is it isn't selfish to consider who/what you want in your environment. Because at the end of the day, you are the one that controls you and your environment. So again, when you make that difficult perspective change, emphasis on difficult because it's not easy, of changing these negative experiences into opportunity, you'll find your true self-worth and value. And when you truly and fully value yourself and recognize your self-worth and you love yourself, you are going to want to create an environment that brings out the best in you at all times. You are going to begin to recognize what deserves the time and space in your environment. There are going to be people and things in life that make your environment toxic. It takes you to recognize what and who is doing that in your life. For an example, shitty friends. They will continue to fill your environment with toxins because they don't care about you, they don't respect you, and they don't value you in a space. So finding people that will have your back is super important. But then also, once you find those people, not letting the past control you. That's one thing that I've definitely had to work on after I kind of dropped my really old friend group because they were all horrible people. You can hear about that in, I think, it's in For My Girls. Go listen to For My Girls if you want to hear about my past shitty friendships. It's a really good episode. Anyways, back on track. To not let that situation have a hold in my life now is super, super important. And taking the steps to remove these toxins from your environment is hard. It takes balls, that's for sure. And it also takes time and patience and respect. You might think respect for other people. No, respect for yourself. Self-respect is something that we all need, and I find is not very common, especially with young girls, and girls my age, is that we don't have respect for ourselves because, again, we're trying to fit into somebody else's mold. And another thing that it takes to remove toxins from your environment is courage. It takes so much courage to stand up and advocate for what you want and what you need in your life and your environment. And it takes even more courage to remove things that are poisoning your environment. So it takes a lot. Just because I'm able to say it doesn't mean it's easy. That's a really big thing. It's definitely not easy, but it's also not impossible. Now I just want to talk about the difference between growing from or growing off of. When you're growing off of negative experiences, you become dependent on others to make decisions for you. You're constantly worried, unsure, and concerned about what other people think about you and your actions. And again, this negatively impacts your mental health, which overall has a trickle effect into other aspects of your life. And you're letting the past control you. If I let those girls in elementary school control my life, would I be alive today? And if I was, what would I be doing? Probably not a podcast if I let them control me. And growing off of something, you don't think about what you're wanting out of life because you're letting outside influences control your reality. But when you start to grow from something, you start to have a stronger mental health and capacity for things, and you gain more respect for yourself, and you gain confidence from your experiences because you know for next time that when you enter those experiences again, you have the power within yourself to overcome these adversities that you're going to face. Another thing that I have noticed once I started growing from these negative experiences in my life is that you start to factor in what matters to you and what matters to your success. So you're not thinking about what other people want for you. You think about you and what you want. And that is something so important for youth to understand because I think peer pressure is real. And so a lot of youth let their environment and their peers dictate what happens to them, but that doesn't lead to great things. And so it is so important to factor in what matters to you. Overall, when you're growing from something, you become more resilient and you are stronger and you are more confident in yourself and your abilities, and it makes life easier. When you are confident in yourself, oh boy, it makes you so much happier. Happiness at the end of the day is a thing that matters. So I want everyone listening to take a second right now to think, what do you want? What is important to you? What do you want your environment to be made of? Who do you want there to see you succeed? And who is going to help you get there? Who is helping you succeed? What factors are dictating your environment? Are they nurturing it or are they poisoning it? I want everybody to remember that your experiences, good or bad, make you unique. We all experience different things as people, and that is the beauty of life. Another big thing, and I just said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again, it is not selfish to consider what's best for you and changing your environment accordingly. It is not selfish. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Project Honesty. I know this was a little bit of a shorter one, but I'm going to try a short little series this time and see what happens. You can find Project Honesty on Spotify at Project Honesty or on YouTube at Project_Honesty. And to keep up to date with new episodes, you can head over to Project Honesty's Instagram, which is at Project_Honesty24. We also have a TikTok, which is at Project.Honesty. And to help spread this podcast everywhere, tell a friend, share with family, or share on social media about Project Honesty. You can direct your friends and family over to the Instagram, the TikTok, the Spotify, or the YouTube to help them learn more. Subscribe, follow, and click the bell icon for updates when I post. And remember, the more listeners, the bigger the family.